Today we're going to talk about appendages of the skin. The goal of this video is to discuss the structure and function of skin glands. At this point, you know the three main layers of the skin: the epidermis on top, the dermis in the middle, and the hypodermis or subcutaneous layer at the bottom. Notice I've labeled two glands in this image: a sweat gland and an oil gland. These are the two types of glands found in the skin. They have technical names though. Sudoriferous is the sweat gland, and sebaceous is the oil gland. For the remainder of the video, we'll talk about the characteristics of each. There are 2.5 million sudoriferous glands per person. There are two types of sudoriferous glands. The first is the eccrine. These sweat glands are abundant and often found on the palms, soles of your feet, and the forehead. I've outlined this type of sweat gland in red in the image. The second is the apocrine. It is found almost exclusively in the armpit and genital areas. I've outlined this type of sweat gland in light blue in the image on the screen. Notice that the eccrine connects directly to the surface of the skin, whereas the apocrine opens into the hair follicle leading to the surface of the skin. That's very important. Both of these are considered merocrine glands, and I'll say more about merocrine glands in a moment when I contrast them with holocrine glands. Now, in this illustration, you can clearly see that eccrine sweat glands are long tubes that open into the pores on the surface of the skin. Now let me say something more about the sweat that sweat glands produce. Sweat is 99% water, with trace amounts of salts, vitamins, wastes, and antimicrobial peptides called dermcidin. An antimicrobial is a substance that kills microorganisms such as bacteria and molds. And a peptide is just a chain of amino acids. So this peptide kills bacteria and other microbes on your skin. Sweat is also generally acidic. Now let's talk a little bit more about apocrine sweat glands. So apocrine sweat glands contain all the traditional components of sweat that I just mentioned, plus fatty substances and proteins. Sweat generated from these glands is originally odorless, but bacteria begin to break down the fat and proteins, which causes body odor. This increases during puberty and functions similarly to scent glands in animals. In your notes, you will see a Venn diagram comparing eccrine and apocrine glands. It should be filled in to say something like what you see on the screen here. You can pause the video now and fill it in if you haven't already. Let's finish up by talking about sebaceous or oil glands. These glands produce sebum, which is oil. Because sebum is usually secreted onto hair, there are more oil glands on the scalp and face, and none on palms or soles of feet. Since I'm bald, many of my students have noticed that my head is often shiny, and they've asked if I polish it. If you're wondering, no, I'm not joking. If they had paid attention to this lesson, though, in their anatomy class, they would realize that I still have sebaceous glands on my scalp producing oil, giving it its shiny appearance. Sebaceous glands are holocrine glands. Holocrine glands are glands that have to destroy cells to secrete their substance, whereas merocrine glands are able to secrete their substance without causing any damage to the cell. The function of sebaceous glands is to lubricate skin and hair and kill bacteria. The amount of oil produced is based on your genes that you inherited, but usually this production of oil increases during puberty. To sum up, the sudoriferous glands are long tubes that release sweat. If they also produce fats and proteins, they are apocrine glands. And sebaceous glands are found near hairs and produce sebum, which is oil.